In this video, I'm going to show you how to become so disciplined that it starts to scare people to the point where they call you psychopathic. This is the same framework that I've used to do 2 years of semen retention and even more now, pretty easily without having to think much about it. How I was able to deadlift almost 600 pounds and even build my personal brand in the first few months to 10,000 followers within just 2 or 3 months. Apply this process and you will be so much more fulfilled in the way that you view yourself, because you can now keep your word to what you say you're going to do and how you actually do it. My name is Victor Vigil, and this all comes from the philosophy and methodology that is called Kaizen. So Kaizen, after World War II, Japan was devastated from the nuclear bombs, from just the onslaught of the war. And so how they were able to build from just total destruction in World War II to becoming Japan becoming the number 2 world economy was this philosophy of Kaizen. What they did was they practiced getting 1% better every single day. They practice Kaizen, meaning continual change for the better. You see, a lot of people struggle to actually make their dreams, make their goals come true, because they're holding themselves to a standard that is so high that it starts to feel so overwhelming, it starts to feel impossible, that they psych themselves out of it. A lot of people get caught up comparing themselves to the highlight reels that are showing up on Instagram, on YouTube, and everybody is seeing the best version of people at the end, at the finished product. One of my favorite business influencers, Alex Hormozy, he says that the Rocky cutscene, it lasts 5 minutes in the movie, but in real life, it lasts 5 years. And because it's shortened and compressed, we're so used to seeing that super compressed version. And so we're just continuously expecting ourselves to become insanely disciplined, to become insanely successful, without actually realizing the work and the road that it's going to take to get to that point. And so this is why we have to embrace the philosophy of Kaizen, because it means continual change for the better. 1% change every day will accumulate and compound to just insane amounts of transformation. How do you actually begin to apply this? Is by just taking one single small step that is so small that it would feel stupid, that people would think that it doesn't even make sense how small that action is. One of the things that I've been practicing for just about a month now has been waking up every single morning at 6 a.m. And the first thing I do, the only thing that I do, is roll onto the floor and I do a plank for a couple of minutes. That's literally all I do. That's the only thing that I've changed about my routine for the past month. And you know what happened? I've been able to do it consistently for this past month without having to think about this. And the reason that Kaizen actually works is because it's in agreement with neuroscience. It's able to bypass your mind's threat detectors. What happens when people try to set too big of goals is that it's setting off the amygdala in your mind. The amygdala is essentially the threat detector in your mind that is going to recognize those goals and say, wait a second, this is not in alignment with our identity. This is not in alignment with the story that we've been telling ourselves to this point. I don't have any sound evidence of this person actually living this lifestyle. And because that threat detector turns on, it's going to shut down the prefrontal cortex, which makes it really hard for your mind to actualize anything, because the prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that you need for executive function. It's the part of your brain that you need to execute and to accomplish tasks and to make decisions. So an example for this, an analogy, is to think of your brain like a castle. Our goal is to infiltrate this castle. And at the gate of this castle are a bunch of guards that are protecting it. They let people come in and out because of farmers, because of traders, to keep the markets going. But they want to make sure to protect against any threats. So if we bring a giant to attack this castle and walk it up to the gates, these guards are going to say, this is a large, massive threat. We're not going to let you in because you're armed and because you're massive. We're going to reject this. You need to go or we're going to kill you on the spot. It's not going to work. He's not going to make it into the castle. But instead, if we actually ambush with a bunch of ninjas who are really small and dressed up like farmers or traders, then we can sneak a bunch of them into the castle without the castle guards even recognizing that's happening. And then all of a sudden we've got a ton of ninjas inside the castle and take everything apart and just totally, you get the point. The point that I'm making is that we need to sneak a bunch of little ninjas into your mind. We need to sneak a bunch of small little evidences of transformation into your mind until all of a sudden your identity starts to go, wait a second, I'm actually becoming kind of good at this stuff. I'm actually getting pretty decent at this. I'm a beginner. I don't have crazy high expectations of being a finished product like I'm seeing everybody else online. I'm just becoming this. I'm getting reasonably good at it. And then a few weeks, a few months later, you know what? This is actually legit. I'm actually legitimately good at doing this. I am good at doing planks every single morning. I am consistent. And this begins to compound over time to the point where you're like, oh shoot, I'm a legitimately disciplined person. And you can see this is just going to snowball and snowball. But it's such a small action that it's bypassing your mind. It's getting past the threat detectors in your mind to enter the castle. And as you stack up enough of these evidences, you're all of a sudden going to realize, oh shoot, I'm actually pretty good at this. And that's what's going to give you the identity of someone who actually can become disciplined. It's not saying one of my clients recently, he had this idea that he was going to record 10 to 12 YouTube videos and he was going to record a bunch of Instagram reels before he uploaded everything. And then he was hoping that he could just have a bunch of content stored up to release it. And you know what happened was for an entire month, he talked himself out of it. He completely psyched himself out of that because the expectation of himself was so high. And so it just never happened. He had totally psyched himself out of this. And so what we did was we began just putting him into the environment, just setting up the camera, just putting on the right clothes, just putting on some cologne that reminds him that he is in filming mode now. And you know what happened? He finally jump-started his social media and started recording stuff and got away from the perfectionism and is already beginning to crush it. And so you don't have to have the crazy expectations on yourself of expecting yourself to become Rocky, to become the ultimate version of yourself within one single day. You don't have to have an entire change to your routine. You don't have to have an entire change to your life in one single day or in 2 weeks. The motivation is going to give out because the goal is just way too big and the prefrontal cortex is going to shut down. This is the same thing that I used for something simple like taking a cold shower. I always talk about this in my videos of how I've been able to take cold showers really well because I put myself into that environment. I just turn the water really cold, and then I would go turn on some music that's going to get me hyped up, and I would put myself into the environment. And even though the water was ice cold, I would tell myself, I would just say to myself before stepping in that I'm a killer, that I'm a conqueror, that I can do this, that this doesn't affect me, that I really like this. And that was what helped to just put me in that environment. And that's compounded. And these small little evidences over time and these small little additions just built up a mountain of evidence. Just built this huge mountain of evidence to this point in my life where I can just say, you know what? I actually am really disciplined. And that's really great that I can say that now, just because I have these small little things I did that felt so stupid that people would consider it unreasonable. And now they're calling me psychopathic. And that's the same thing that you can apply in your life today. Apply Kaizen to your life today and watch how your life transformed. Memento mori, remember that you will die. We'll see you on the next one.